Damn, son, that's a big twist.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Now, before we get started, let me ask you a simple question. Are you a fan of gambling? Going to the casino, playing the slot machines? Does it give you a rush when you hit the jackpot and the coins start spitting out of the machine? If you answered yes to these questions, then you're probably going to love seal twisting. This video is a comprehensive seal twisting guide for Season of Discovery. All of the information from the video can be found in my rotation guide on Wowhead, which will be linked in the description. The article will also be kept up to date with any new developments or information. Now, a lot of people are under the impression that seal twisting is really complicated and really difficult, and that only the best players will ever be able to do it properly, but in my opinion, that's really not the case. It's actually quite easy to learn, which I hope you'll see by the end of the video, and with a little bit of practice, you can master it very quickly. I hope that this video encourages more of you guys to try it out for yourselves. Seal twisting is a rhythm-based Paladin rotation. The core mechanic is casting a second seal right before your auto attack, so that it has 2 seals instead of 1. This is a seal twist. Seal twisting was originally a bug in Vanilla and the Burning Crusade, but was turned into a feature in WoW Classic when the developers intentionally added a more consistent version of seal twisting to the Burning Crusade and Classic era. When you cast a second seal, your previous seal will have its duration set to 400 milliseconds or 0.4 seconds. This 400 millisecond period is referred to as the twisting window. If you attack before this 400 millisecond seal expires, your attack will have both seals. In Season of Discovery, we have bidirectional or two-way seal twisting, so it doesn't matter what seal you start in and what seal you end in. The order of seals is sometimes referred to as the seal that you twist out of and the seal that you twist into. Bidirectional two-way seal twisting is a lot more simplified than the one-way seal twisting we had in the Burning Crusade, and it will allow you to seal twist on every single auto attack. One of the reasons people might think that seal twisting is so complicated is because the one-way seal twisting in the Burning Crusade really was very complicated. This is the TVC rotation broken down into a flowchart. This is the rotation logic behind the TVC simulator. In order for people to really understand it, we had to break it down into 8 or 9 different rotations that you would switch between based on your attack speed. In comparison, the two-way seal twisting in Season of Discovery looks like this. The best in slot rotation will simply seal twist, then cast Judgment, then do a filler spell, and then it will repeat every auto attack. It never changes, it's like a metronome. So as you can see, seal twisting is now much more beginner friendly. The only downside to two-way seal twisting is that it has a Haste Cap, 3.0 attack speed. This is the time required for 2 global cooldowns, 1 filler spell and 1 seal twist. If you drop below 3.0 attack speed, you will no longer be able to fit both in every auto attack. So we will need to carefully manage our haste buffs, enchants, and our weapon speed in order to stay above 3.0 attack speed, and don't forget that Might of Stormwind gives you 15% haste. So anytime you are world buffed with Might of Stormwind, you will need a 3.5 speed weapon or slower. If you have a 3.5 speed weapon, you will only use haste on your gloves. If you have a 3.6 speed weapon or slower, you will also use Librum of Rapidity on your helm and legs. Later in the video, in part 5, we will discuss what you should do if you end up below the haste cap. The 6-piece set bonus that is shared between Tier 1 and Tier 2 Core Forged will change our twisting window from 0.4 seconds to 6 seconds, and this will drastically alter our rotation. So instead of needing to time your seals right before your auto attack, you just sort of juggle them and maintain them so that both are up most of the time. We now refer to this 6-piece rotation as seal stacking to differentiate it from traditional seal twisting, as it is very different. We are not going to be covering seal stacking in this video, but you can find information for that on the Wowhead Rotation guide. In Blackwing Lair, seal stacking is still very competitive on the top logs. For seal twisting, abilities like Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Exorcism, or Consecration are referred to as filler spells, as they will fill the gaps in between our seal twists. We will typically be using 1 filler spell followed by 1 seal twist, then repeat every single auto attack, 1 filler, 1 twist, repeat. The final key pillar of the rotation is how to time Judgment strategically. So Judgment is off the global cooldown and can be used at any time as long as the seal is active, even if you're on the global cooldown. The way that we time Judgment is going to depend on what Tier 2 set bonuses we have. When the Phase 5 patch went live, the core mechanics behind Judgement were modified, and you can no longer double judge 2 seals at the same time without the Tier 1 or Tier 2 Coreforged 6-piece bonus. Otherwise, if you have 2 seals active when judging, it will now judge the seal with the lowest remaining duration, the one that you twisted out of rather than the seal that you most recently cast and twisted into. This will be important later. We ideally want to judge Seal of Martyrdom if we can, as this is the hardest hitting judgment. So first we're going to begin with the basic seal twisting rotation, and then we're going to cover how each tier 2 set bonus will change the rotation, primarily by changing how we use Judgement. So in Season of Discovery, we will be seal twisting Martyrdom with Command. For this we will need a swing timer add-on or WEAKAURA, and I have included my own personal swing timer in the description of the video. So let's go ahead and pull up my swing timer and take a look at exactly how it works. The swing timer is divided into different sections with these tick markers, and it will change colors depending on which portion of the swing you are in. The first section is the filler window. This is where you can cast your abilities like Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, and Exorcism. We call these filler spells because they fill the space in between our seal twists. These can be used anywhere from the start of the swing timer until the red tick marker. The red tick marker denotes the end of the filler window. During the filler window, the swing timer will turn blue. You will use a simple priority list in order to prioritize your filler spells in the best order. Here is your single target filler priority. The highest priority is Crusader Strike that we're going to use anytime it's ready, followed by Divine Storm, Exorcism, and then Consecration. But most of the time we won't be able to fit Consecration unless it's AoE. For AoE or cleave, we're going to put a higher priority on Divine Storm and Consecration to hit multiple targets. Our highest priority is Divine Storm, followed by Consecration, then Crusader Strike, and then Exorcism last. For very, very large pulls with a lot of enemies, you'll want to put Consecration above Divine Storm as your number 1 priority spell. Make sure that you have the Art of War rune on your boots so that Exorcism is ready when you need it. The middle portion of the swing timer is the Danger Zone. This is the window where if you cast a global cooldown, you will interfere with your upcoming seal twist. The Danger Zone is located between the red tick marker and the first green tick marker. During the Danger Zone, the swing timer will turn red. And then of course, finally we have the twist window. This is the window where you can cast a new seal to perform a successful seal twist. The twist window is exactly 0.4 seconds or 400 milliseconds long, from the first green tick marker to the end of the swing. The second green tick marker is for twisting late. This will be important later on. For some of the more advanced rotations, we will want to twist late rather than early. This will cause our second seal to continue to linger after the auto attack and allow us to judge while both seals are still active. During the twist window, or anytime your swing is ready, the swing timer will turn green. Here's what the swing timer looks like in action. You can see how the swing timer will change colors depending on where you are. If you're somebody who doesn't want to stare at the swing timer more than you have to, you can twist without looking at the swing timer by using your peripheral vision and seeing the color change in the corner of your eye. Additionally, under the Custom Options tab, there are sound cues that can be turned on or off. When enabled, a bell sound will play when it's time for you to twist. You can choose between having the sound play at the first green tick or the second green tick for late twisting. You can also disable, move, or modify the tick markers in the display options. Moving the tick markers can be a solution to playing with high latency. So this is the base rotation for seal twisting. We're not going to judge just quite yet, as judge is going to change depending on what gear we have. We're going to do a filler spell at the front of our swing timer, and we're going to do a seal twist at the end of our swing timer. Then we're going to repeat. Filler, twist, repeat. Filler, twist, repeat. In the filler window, we're just going to follow the priority list. Following the single target priority will usually give us this repeating pattern. Crusader Strike, Divine Storm. Crusader Strike, Exorcism. Then we repeat. If a filler spell triggers an extra attack, it will actually reset your swing timer and you will have time for a second filler spell. This is bad because we've lost part of a swing and our upcoming seal twist will now be delayed. There's actually a way that we can prevent our swing timer from ever resetting, and that is by using a Stopattack macro. We'll talk about this later in the macro section. We will also be using the improved Hammer of Wrath wrist rune. We're actually not going to use Hammer of Wrath at 20%, as our other filler spells will be better thanks to Righteous Vengeance. When the enemy reaches 10% health, we will keep Seal of Martyrdom up and keep auto-attacking while we spam Hammer of Wrath repeatedly until the enemy dies. At this point, we are no longer seal twisting, we are just auto-attacking with Martyrdom and spamming Hammer of Wrath. Now do take note that Hammer of Wrath does not benefit from the precision talent or weapon skill, so the hit cap for Hammer of Wrath is actually 9%. When Hammer of Wrath misses, it will not reset its cooldown, and you will need to go back to Seal Twisting until the cooldown is ready again. The Tier 2 Draconic 2-piece bonus prevents your Judgment from consuming your seals. So if you have this set bonus, you can actually continue to judge Martyrdom while you spam Hammer of Wrath. For that, you might want a macro like this. This macro will allow you to judge while you spam Hammer of Wrath with one button. Once you have a good understanding of the base rotation, Seal Twist, Filler, Seal Twist, Filler, Repeat, then you can start adding Judgment to the rotation. And again, this is going to depend on what gear you have. So let's go ahead and look at the different ways that you might use Judgment. Alright, so now we're going to add Judgment to the rotation, and the way that we use Judgment is going to depend on which of the Tier 2 Draconic set bonuses we have. Before we get to this point and add Judgment, we want to make sure that we have a good understanding of the base twisting rotation and that we're not missing any twists. Utilizing Judgment to its fullest potential is sometimes the hardest part of the rotation. The more advanced Judgment methods, like cancel judging, will demand more practice and more precision than is required to perfectly hit every twist. Without any of the Draconic Tier 2 set bonuses, there's two different ways we can use Judge. Let's start with the method that is easier to do but does less damage, the beginner method. For beginner judging, we're going to judge during the filler window if it's ready and Seal of Martyrdom is our only active seal. Then we're going to refresh command. After you twist into Martyrdom, make sure to let Seal of Command expire first and then you're good to judge. The idea here is that we are going to judge Martyrdom on every third swing and then refresh command instead of a filler spell. After we judge, we want to make sure to refresh Seal of Command. That way, we'll be in Seal of Martyrdom the next time we want to use Judge again. So we're going to start off with a twist into Martyrdom. Then we're going to Judge, Reseal Command, and twist. Then we're going to Crusader Strike and twist again. Then we're going to Divine Storm and twist again. Now we repeat. Judge, Reseal Command, and twist. Crusader Strike and twist. Divine Storm and twist again. And it just keeps repeating like this every 3 swings. First, you Judge and Reseal Command. Second, you Crusader Strike. Third, you Divine Storm. Now let's move on to the Judgment technique that is stronger but also more difficult. This technique is going to require a little bit more practice and a little bit more precision, but if you're up to the challenge, then let's get started. First, we're going to need to backtrack a little bit and cover the new Judgment mechanics again. So, if you'll recall, without the Tier 1 6-piece bonus, you have 2 seals up, and you try to judge, it will always judge the seal with the lowest remaining duration. In the context of seal twisting, this means it will always judge the seal that we twisted out of, rather than the seal that we twisted into. So we can do some clever manipulation of this mechanic in order to prevent having to reseal after we cast Judgment. This technique is called the Pro Judge. After we twist into Seal of Command, Seal of Martyrdom will have 0.4 seconds remaining. If we judge during this window when both seals are up, it will consume Martyrdom and judge it, but leave us with Seal of Command active. This will prevent us from having to reseal, and will save us a global cooldown that we can use for another filler spell. Now here's the tricky part. After this twist, when you have both of your seals up, the Judgment must occur after the auto attack, but before Seal of Martyrdom expires. You need Seal of Command, the auto attack, and the Judgment to all occur within 0.4 seconds, in that order. From the moment you press Seal of Command, you have 0.4 seconds after to auto attack and then judge. If you judge too early, you'll end up judging and consuming Martyrdom before your twist even happens, and that means your twist will not have Seal of Martyrdom at all. If you judge too late, Martyrdom will expire before the judge, causing you to judge and consume Seal of Command instead, and this will leave you with no seal, and now you have to reseal. As I'm sure you can already tell, the timing for this is somewhat precise. All of these techniques, where you judge after the auto attack, but before your second seal expires, are going to require more practice than anything else in the rotation. They will also only increase your damage by a few %, so they really should be the last thing that you try to learn after you have the rest of the rotation perfectly mastered and you're willing to take on the extra challenge. Now, with all of that being said, the later we twist, the easier this will be to perform. That's because the later we twist, the longer Seal of Martyrdom will linger after the auto attack, which gives us more time to judge. It also means that the gap between our seal twist and the auto attack will be much smaller, making it a lot less likely that we will ever accidentally judge too early. The later you twist, the less precise you need to be. Here's an example of a seal twist, with the white bar being our swing and the black line being the end of the auto attack. This twist isn't very early, but it's also not as late as it could be. It's just sort of in the middle, a little bit on the later side. In the red and green highlighted areas, both of our seals are up from the twist. The green area is where we want to judge. It's after the auto attack, but it's before Seal of Martyrdom has expired. The red area shows us where it's too early to judge. We don't want to judge and consume our seal before the auto attack, because then our auto attack will only have one seal. Additionally, when we're using Stopattack macros on our judge, if we judge before the auto attack, then the auto attack will never go off. This is a mistake that I see a lot of new players make, where they judge before the auto attack and then their auto attack never even goes off, and they wonder why they're stuck. We'll talk more about Stopattack macros in part 4. Also, take a look at how the red area bleeds into the next auto very slightly. We want to make sure that we have a very small buffer after the auto attack before we judge. Something like 50 milliseconds, a very short amount of time. This is because our auto attack could trigger things like Seal of Command or an extra attack, and these things will occur a very short amount of time after the auto attack. So we want to make sure that we're not judging and consuming one of our seals before all of these things have gone through. Here's what it might look like if you twist very early. In fact, we twisted so early that Seal of Martyrdom expired right after our auto attack. So now there is simply no green area after the auto attack where we can judge Martyrdom. It expires the moment the auto attack goes through. If we try to judge Martyrdom here before it expires, we will be judging too early by default. So now let's take a look at a twist that is very late. So this is about as late as you could possibly twist without delaying your auto attack. So now the auto attack is happening almost immediately after we've pressed our seal. We've essentially shrunk the gap between our seal and our auto attack by twisting late. The area in red where it is too early to use Judgment has been reduced so short that the likelihood we accidentally judge early is very low, and we would need to judge unnaturally fast after casting our seal for this to happen. We can now cast Judgment almost immediately after casting our seal, which means we don't need to worry about being extremely precise with our timing. Additionally, Seal of Martyrdom will linger for much longer after the auto attack, and as a result, the area in green where we can successfully judge is much larger. Since we will most likely be using Stopattack macros, we do not need to worry about being too late on the seal twist, as our auto attack will not start until we press our seal macro with the start attack command and restart our attack. To put it simply, we cannot miss our twist by being too late. The worst that can happen is that we slightly delay our twist instead. Again, these macros will be covered in part 4. The second green tick on the swing timer is there to help you twist late. This tick marker is 200 milliseconds from the end of the swing. Now we have to take into account that from the moment we see the swing timer reach the tick marker, it takes time for us to react to the visual feedback, press our seal button, and then for that input to reach and be processed by the server. Now, in my experience playing with around 50 milliseconds of latency, twisting at this tick marker will usually cause my seal to be cast in the last 100 milliseconds or less for the melee attack, giving me a very late twist. Your mileage may vary based on your latency and your reaction time, so feel free to adjust the tick in the display options as needed. So let's take a look at the rotation in action. I'm going to twist late into command, and then after the auto, I'm going to judge. So I pressed my seal twist at the second green tick marker, and this is the frame where the seal twist actually begins. The first indication of the seal twist occurring is the start attack command in my seal macro being executed, which can be seen by a second red circle appearing and closing in around the target. As you can see, by the time the server actually processed my twist, the swing timer is almost at the end, and it's a very late twist, which is good. So now as my auto rolls over, I'm about to press Judgment. The seal indicator is now showing us the fraction of a second that's left on Martyrdom. You need to judge before that seal expires, so this directly shows us the window of time in which we have to judge. So now I'm going to press Judgment. Now, I didn't actually wait until I saw my swing reset before pressing Judge. All I did was twist late and then judge afterwards. As long as you twist late and avoid judging unnaturally quickly after your seal, you'll kind of naturally leave enough of a gap between them for your judgment to be perfectly timed every time. There's sort of a rhythm to it, and you'll pick it up quickly. So as you can see, we managed to judge Martyrdom and leave ourselves with Seal of Command, so we don't need to reseal and we can actually Divine Storm. And then we're back to the base twisting rotation until it's time to judge again. If you have Stopattack on your judge and you judge too early before the twist goes off, it'll look something like this, and your auto attack will just hang there because you stopped your attack right before your twist. Now let's take a look at the full pro judging rotation in real time. For the filler spells, we're going to end up doing the same repeating pattern that most of the twisting rotations all share, which is Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Exorcism, and then we repeat. On every other command twist, we'll be judging afterwards. This ends up being once every 4 twists. Alright, now let's cover how we're going to use Judgment with 2-piece Draconic Tier 2. With this set bonus, your Judgment will no longer consume your seals, and you have an extra 20% Judgment damage. Alright, so assuming you have the 2-piece bonus but not the 4-piece bonus, Judgment is going to be really simple. Since we no longer need to precisely time our Judgment or reseal afterwards, it's going to be really straightforward. We're simply going to use Judge anytime it's ready, and Seal of Martyrdom is our only seal or lowest duration seal. AKA, we're just going to judge Martyrdom as much as possible. Now, if you don't want to expend the extra effort to avoid judging command, you can simply macro Judgment into all of your filler spells and use it on cooldown regardless of your seal. This is only between 0.3% and 1% less damage. We can now also use Judgment of Martyrdom on cooldown while we spam Hammer of Wrath at enemies below 10% health. For that, I personally have been using a macro like this and it's been working great. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the rotation, judging Martyrdom as much as we can without the macros. Something to keep in mind is that the Judgment cooldown might line up with the very beginning of your auto attack when you still have 2 seals up from the twist. Just make sure that if you use Judgment here, that Seal of Martyrdom is the seal with the lowest duration. If it's not, you should simply wait for command to expire before pressing Judgment. Sometimes the Judgment cooldown will also line up right before your twist, and you'll have to judge whether or not you think you can squeeze it in before doing your seal twist. Make sure that if you're using a Stopattack macro, that you don't ever judge in between your seal twist and the auto attack. And once again, our filler spells will end up in this repeating pattern: Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Exorcism, then repeat. And here's what it looks like if you simply macro Judgment into all of your filler spells. Now, I know this doesn't look very different, but the main difference is that we will be sometimes judging command and we will be judging more often. Now, keep in mind that your Judgment cooldown might end up being 1 second before your filler spell, 1 second after. So not only will you want to use the filler macro anytime you're doing a filler spell, but you'll also want to use it anytime Judgment's off cooldown, since they won't always line up together. For our single target fillers, we'll still be doing this repeating pattern of Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Exorcism. Let's go ahead and move on to the 4-piece Draconic Tier 2 set bonus, which reduces the cooldown of Judgment by 5 seconds. With the improved Judgment talent, that'll give us a cooldown of 3 seconds. Alright, so with the 4-piece bonus, we once again have 2 different ways we can use our Judgment. We have a beginner Judgment technique, and we have a much more advanced Judgment technique called Cancel Judging, which will allow us to get up to 3% more damage. And once again, I highly recommend that you have the rest of the rotation completely mastered before you attempt the more advanced Cancel Judging. Best case scenario, with perfect execution, it can give you up to 3% more damage, which isn't insignificant, but it's also not game changing, and it's much more important that you're doing the rest of the rotation properly and not missing your twists. Additionally, it can be extremely punishing if you mess it up, and even just a couple of mistakes can leave you worse off than you were before. So because of that, Cancel Judging really should be the last thing that you try to learn if you're willing to take on the extra challenge for a little bit more damage. So for the beginner easy mode judging, we're just going to cast Judgment on cooldown basically. Every 3 seconds, you can also macro it into all of your filler spells. Sometimes you'll end up casting the weaker Judgment of Command, but it is what it is. And if you're using a Stopattack Judge macro, once again, just make sure that you don't judge in the space between your seal and your auto attack. Otherwise, you'll end up stopping your attack before your twist goes off. Once again, if you are going to macro Judgment into your filler spells, just be aware that the Judgment cooldown might not always line up with the exact moment that you're casting your filler spells, so you will also want to use your filler macro anytime Judgment's off cooldown, since they won't always line up. So here's what the rotation looks like in real time. Now sometimes your Judgment cooldown will become ready around the time that you want to seal twist. So if you're using a Stopattack macro, you'll have to make a judgment call about, can I squeeze this in before the twist, or should I hold it until after? Because remember, you don't want to use the judge in between your seal and the auto attack. Otherwise, you'll end up stopping your attack right before your twist goes off, which is bad. And once again, our filler spells on single target will follow this repeating pattern of Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Exorcism. Alright, so I think we are finally ready to talk about the more advanced cancel judging technique. This technique is only for the 4-piece Draconic Tier 2 set bonus with a 3-second judge cooldown. Cancel judging is definitely the hardest part of the rotation, and it's going to require more practice and more precision than anything else. So it might take you a little bit of time before you figure it out, but once you get the muscle memory for it down, it's pretty easy to do consistently. So as a quick reminder, if you have 2 seals up and you try to judge, it's always going to judge the seal with the lowest remaining duration, aka the seal that we twisted out of. So we're going to use a couple of macros to manipulate this mechanic and judge martyrdom after every single twist. This way we never have to judge command. Now before we get started, there's a couple of caveats we should cover really quick. The first caveat is that cancel judging is not always the best strategy. Because it limits you to 1 judgment per auto attack, the slower your attack speed, the worse it is. Cancel Judge is at its most powerful when our attack speed is right around 3.0, because then it lines up perfectly with our Judgment cooldown. This is where we can expect around a 3% damage increase. If you have Might of Stormwind, it's almost always a DPS gain. If you don't have Might of Stormwind, it's usually DPS neutral, or on the slower weapons, a DPS loss. Without Might of Stormwind, the only reason to do it is really just for practice. Another caveat is that because we're judging martyrdom so often, we're going to be taking a lot more self-damage from the Reflect. In a raid environment, this damage is still perfectly healable, it's just something to be aware of. You'll definitely want Judgment of Light on the boss more than ever. So here's how it works. After we twist into Seal of Command, we're going to use a regular Judgment macro to judge martyrdom before it expires. After we twist into Seal of Martyrdom, we're going to use a Cancel Aura Judgment macro to remove Seal of Command and judge martyrdom instead. We could simply wait for Seal of Command to expire, but then our Judgment cooldown is not going to line up properly on the next swing. So just like the Pro Judge technique that we covered earlier in the video, Judgment must happen after the auto attack but before our second seal expires. The seal, the auto attack, and the Judgment must all occur within 0.4 seconds in that order. We want to judge when we have both of our seals up. In order for this to work, you have to twist late and you cannot twist early. The later you twist, the more time you have to cast Judgment after the auto attack before the second seal expires, and the sooner you can use Judgment after seal twisting. If you twist too early, your second seal is also going to expire too early. So we're going to have 2 different Judgment macros that we're going to alternate between. So this is our first Judgment macro, and it's just a regular Judgment macro with a Stopattack. And I named it SOC to remind me that this is the macro I press after Seal of Command. And here is our second macro, it's our Cancel Judge macro. So this macro is the same, except for it has a Cancel Aura Seal of Command to remove command before judging. And this one is named SOM to remind me that I use this macro after Seal of Martyrdom. So after a little bit of practice, your muscle memory is going to begin to associate these binds in pairs. When you press Seal of Martyrdom, you're going to press Cancel Judge after. When you press Seal of Command, you're going to press Regular Judge after. It's generally a good idea to set up your keybinds in a way that allows your hand to easily reach your seal and corresponding judge at the same time without moving your hand from your movement keys, which is usually WASD. If you have to move your hand away from the movement keys to do this, it's going to be easier to make mistakes. Also, make sure your cancel judge macro isn't on a key that you're going to fat finger easily, because that will be a problem. So let's take a look at a few diagrams to make sure that we have a good understanding of the precise timing that's required. So this is a representation of a seal twist. The white bar is where our swing is at when we use our seal to seal twist. The black line is the end of the swing timer where our auto attack will go off and a new swing will begin. In the red and green sections is where we have both of our seals up from the seal twist. So this twist isn't super early and it's also not super late, it's kind of in the middle. So we want to use our judgment in the green section. The green section is the window after the auto attack where both of our seals are still active. The red area shows us the window after the twist where it's too early to judge. We always want to avoid using judgment before the auto attack. Since we want to use a Stopattack macro with our judge, if we judge before the auto attack, we're going to stop the attack before the twist goes off. And this is a mistake that I see a lot of new players make, where they sort of twist early and then just immediately judge, and then they're kind of wondering, why didn't my attack go off? Another thing to pay attention to here is that the red area extends into the next auto attack very slightly. That's because the auto attack could trigger Wild Strikes or Hand of Justice, and all of these things will occur a very small amount of time after the auto attack. So when we're doing a cancel judge, we don't want to cancel Seal of Command before these extra attacks occur that may potentially trigger Seal of Command. So we just want to give the auto attack a little bit of breathing room before we judge, just in case. Alright, so this is what it would look like if we twisted as early as possible. Because we twisted very early, our seal is only going to last until the auto attack and then it's going to instantly expire. So once the auto attack lands, this leaves us with no time to judge because the seal has already expired. Alright, so now here's the good stuff. Here is a twist that is very late. The red window of time where our judge would be too early is so much smaller. So as a result, it's very unlikely that we would ever accidentally judge too early. We would almost need to be using our judgment unnaturally quickly after our seal twist. And now we have a much larger window after the auto attack to judge before the seal expires. So it's also a lot less likely that we would ever accidentally be too late. So this is why I added a second green tick marker to the swing timer. The idea is to give you somewhere to aim so that your twist will be late. Now we have to remember that when we press the button to seal twist, it's going to take some time for the server to process that and for the seal twist to actually occur. Now I personally have about 40 milliseconds of latency, and when I twist at the second green tick, it always gives me the perfect late twist for cancel judging every single time. And I never really need to look at my swing timer to make sure that the auto attack goes off before I press judgment. I just kind of judge almost immediately after my seal. As long as I'm not rushing to judge as fast as humanly possible after my seal twist and just leave sort of a natural gap between the two, then I'll never accidentally judge early. So here's a short clip of me doing the cancel judge rotation. And for this, I put my microphone right up to my keyboard so you can hear the rhythm of how quickly I judge after my seal twist. This rhythm works really well for me, and I pretty much never judge too early or too late. I hope that was helpful to you guys with figuring out the rhythm of it. Now these tick markers work great for me, but maybe they don't work so good for you, or you have a different latency and you want to change them, move them around, try at different spots. You can go into the display options of the WEAKAURA and just move them around as you please. So this is what the cancel judge rotation looks like on paper. For our filler spells on a single target, we're just going to keep using the same repeating pattern of Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Exorcism. When we twist in a command, we're going to use our regular Judgment macro, and when we twist in a Martyrdom, we're going to use our Cancel Aura Judgment macro. So this part will take a little bit of time to get your muscle memory down, but overall you can learn it pretty quick. It can be a little bit punishing if you mess up, like if you cancel judge after a command twist, you just won't have a seal anymore. But yeah, that's it. Let's go ahead and see it in action. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see which Judgment macro I'm using. Even if I showed you my action bars, both of my Judgment macros light up when I use either one of them. So my apologies, I just couldn't find a way around that really. So now we've reached the second green tick marker. It's time for us to twist into command, and then we're going to use our regular Judgement macro almost immediately after. So our twist goes off without a hitch, and then our Judgement lands perfectly right at the beginning of the next auto attack. We do a filler spell, and then we get right back up to the second green tick again. This time we're going to twist Martyrdom, and then we're going to use our cancel Judge macro, again almost immediately after, and it's going to cancel Seal of Command and Judge Martyrdom. And once again, our twist goes off perfectly. Our Judge is now about to go off. You can see that Seal of Command hasn't quite expired yet. If we Judge here without canceling it, it's going to Judge Command because it's our lowest duration seal. So on the next frame, you'll see that our Judge macro will conveniently cancel Seal of Command for us and Judge Martyrdom. And there you have it, everything you could possibly need to know. I really hope that spending all this time breaking it down and going into detail has helped you guys. Let's go ahead and move on to part 4. In my opinion, this is one of the most important parts of the video. One of our greatest strengths is our ability to use macros to our advantage. Trying to seal twist without macros is like trying to play a warrior without heroic strike. At this point, they are an essential piece of our toolkit. Let's begin with the most quintessential of techniques that leverage the power of macros, the instant twist. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that all of our seals have start attack. This is not just good for twisting, this is good for any Paladin spec. Now, I also like to add a modifier at the end, so if I hold control, it won't start attack. Now, this is really only useful in one specific scenario, and that's when you have extra attacks that are stored, and you want to do an instant twist, but you can't stop attack without losing them. So when you put up your first seal, you hold control so that the start attack doesn't happen, and that way you don't need to stop attack to set up your instant twist. Now, if none of that made any sense to you at all, don't worry, it'll make a lot more sense in the next section when we talk about storing extra attacks. For now, just make sure that you have start attack attached to your Seal of Martyrdom and Seal of Command. The next thing that we're going to need is just a regular stop attack macro. This macro is so incredibly useful, and you'll find out why soon enough. It's pretty much mandatory to have one of these. I usually keep mine keybound to 1, but you can bind it to whatever you want as long as it's easily accessible. So now we have all of the macros that we need to do our instant twist. So the power of the instant seal twist cannot be understated. It's also incredibly easy. The instant seal twist allows you to do an absolute ton of front-loaded burst damage as soon as you're in melee range, as well as allowing you to deal the most damage when moving around frequently, switching targets, or after breaking out of crowd control. As you can see here in this footage of Phase 1 of Nefarian, I'm just instantly one-shotting every single ad before anybody else in my raid can even touch it. There's not a single other class in the game that comes anywhere close to this level of instant front-loaded burst damage. Alright, so here is how it's done. The first thing we do is we put up a seal if we don't already have one up. It doesn't really matter which one you start with, whether it's Command or Martyrdom. The only reason you might have a preference is if you wanted to judge a specific seal after the twist. So the next thing that we do is we just make sure that we're not attacking. The easiest way to do this is with the stop attack macro that we just made. The reason for this is to prevent our auto attack from going off the second we enter melee range. So we've put up seal 1, we've stopped attacking, now we just enter melee range, and we use the macro for seal 2. The macro that we set up earlier will twist into a second seal and immediately attack, giving us our instant twist. And if you want a little extra damage, feel free to throw a Judgement right on top. First, we're going to put up seal 1, then stop attacking, then go into melee range, and then press seal number 2. Boom, there it is, instant twist. A lot of times you're already going to have a seal up, so you won't even need to put up the first seal. All you need to do is stop attack, go into range, and then twist. Utilizing stop attack and instant twists is what separates players who are only good against target dummies from players who are good all the time. Literally any time that you enter melee range or switch targets and your swing is ready, you should instant twist. You always want to start your rotation with an instant twist. This is the key to smoothly switching targets in combat. If your target dies, just restart your rotation on the next target with an instant twist. There is another reason why we love Stopattack so much, and that is because by adding Stopattack to our Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, and Judgment, we can actually prevent extra attacks like Wild Strikes from resetting our swing timer. For example, if I use this Divine Storm macro and Wild Strikes triggers from this Divine Storm, it's not going to go off immediately, which would have reset my swing timer. Instead, the Wild Strikes will be stored until my next auto attack. Now, even though we're in Stopattack mode, our swing timer will continue to charge up. And since we already put start attack in our seals, every seal twist will automatically restart our auto attack. There's actually a number of different ways that we benefit from doing this. If our swing timer resets, not only does it delay our next twist, but all of that progress we made charging up our swing is just lost. So as a result, we'll get to twist more frequently and we'll end up with more white hits overall. And by storing the extra attack until our twist is going to be more likely to succeed. This makes the entire rotation overall a lot smoother and more predictable. Now, when you have an extra attack stored, you need to be careful because if you start your attack and then stop it again before spending it, it will just vanish. Some abilities like Crusader Strike and Judgment have a built-in start attack. That's why we have this @target modifier in the macro. It disables the built-in start attack and keeps our extra attacks safe. For the same reason, I like to have the ability to turn off the start attack in my seal by holding Control. This way, if I have any stored attacks, I can still set up an instant twist without risking them vanishing. These macros also sort of act as a safety net against missing a twist because you were too late, since your auto attack won't go off until you restart it with your seal. This also makes it much easier to play if you end up below the haste cap. Right here in this clip, I'm using the Judgment macro and I get a Wild Strikes proc. Instead of resetting my swing timer and going off right away, it gets stored. On my next auto attack, which is going to be a twist, I'll have an extra attack on top of it. It's possible to store up to 4 of these attacks indefinitely. Any Reckoning WEAKAURA like this will tell you how many you have stored. I'll include a link to this one in the description. Using these Stopattack macros for your Judgment, Crusader Strike, and Divine Storm can add over 5% more DPS for seal twisting. It's literally free damage that requires no extra thought, maintenance, or any changes to the rotation. There's really no reason why you wouldn't use it. Simply create the macros and do more damage. Here's a brief summary on what to do if you end up below the haste cap. If we're below the cap but we're above 2.2 speed, then we're still going to do the normal rotation. We're simply going to have to hold our stop attack and delay our auto until the global cooldown is ready for us to twist. In other words, we're simply going to waste all of the haste. Now, if our attack speed is between 2.2 and 1.7, we're going to stop twisting completely. We're just going to stay in Martyrdom, cast Judgment on cooldown, and use our filler spells following the priority. If we're between 1.7 and 1.5 attack speed, then we're actually going to do the complete opposite. We're going to stop using fillers completely, and we're only going to seal twist. If we have the 2-piece Draconic Tier 2 set bonus, then we will also continue to use Judgment. Additionally, at this speed, you don't need a cancel judge to judge Martyrdom every 3 seconds. And finally, if you're below 1.5 speed, it becomes impossible to twist at all. So basically, this should be considered the hard cap for haste. And so below 1.5, once again, we stop twisting completely, we stay in Seal of Martyrdom, we cast Judgment on cooldown, and we just use our filler spells, following the normal priority. Now, it's going to be pretty rare to get enough haste to get below a 2.2 attack speed, and most of the time that you'll spend below the haste cap, you'll just be stop attack twisting. That being said, it is possible, such as if you get Burning Adrenaline on Veil, or if you get Temporal Acceleration in Black Trial BWL. Unless we manage to get our attack speed below 2.2, we don't gain any DPS from haste below the cap. You know, I really feel like Seal Twisting Paladin is just something that's really unique and special, and I'm having a lot of fun playing it right now in Season of Discovery. You know, a lot of us crack jokes about how it's a casino class. You know, I made a bunch of gambling jokes at the beginning of the video, and there's certainly a lot of truth to that. Twisting has always been a little bit RNG, but in Season of Discovery, it really feels like the RNG is cranked up to the max. And honestly, I love that about it. Having extreme highs and lows is just way more exciting than going to raid every week and doing the same amount of DPS. And while seal twisting is now much more approachable for a beginner, it still manages to hold on to a high level of skill expression. I really hope this video was helpful to you guys, and I hope that maybe it could help convince some new people to pick up seal twisting for the first time. This is really the most fun I've had playing this game in such a long time, and maybe it's the most fun I'll ever have. I want to give some special thanks to everybody supporting the channel: Purple Duck Butt, Juan93A, Dark Knight, Trev, Kitty Exorcism, Dowrun the Mad, Blode, Project Remy, Athens, and Turd Wizard. Love you guys. Thank you so much. If you liked the video, subscribe for more. Give me a thumbs up. Write a comment. Tell me all about it. Have fun out there, guys. Bring me back a couple of 99s.
This show was brought to you by Light Club, where monkeys go to church.